the Daily Ramble podcast. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Claret and Booze. My name's Nick. You've seen John before. John the KC. He done the investigation series with Gary. We're going to touch a little bit on that after, not too much in depth. We're just going to, because obviously we've had the news through that Tim's flown out to Brazil to speak to Paqueta. So whether that's because he's, I don't know, doesn't want to come back. But I'm not too sure how serious this is. But we'll have a little chat about that. And we've got some exclusive news as well. All right. Now, I know a lot of you, look, I'm not an ITK. As I said on my video the other day, John, I'm an SITK. I'm sometimes in the know. An SITK. I'm sometimes in the know. Sometimes.
I just spelled it in the
head. So, obviously, I gave you the John Duran news exclusively. I said earlier in the week that I had a couple of other players. I haven't had authorisation to release both of them, but there is one of them that I can, and we're going to touch on that a little bit later. A Premier League centre-back. I'm excited by it, so I will reveal that later on. John, how are you, mate?
I'm all right.
You're good?
Yeah, I was at Hyde Park last night. Went to see Stevie Nicks. Really,
how'd it go?
She was great. 76 years old. She can hardly move now, the poor woman. But I still fancy her. Well, no, I don't. No, no.
I know.
How she used to look, because a lot of the visuals were Stevie when she was. Dreams is one of my favourite ever songs. I thought, even if it's £300 to go and watch her sing Dreams, I've seen her before. It was worth it. It was a great night out. She was really.
Was it a good turnout? Good turnout there as well.
What?
Was it a good turnout? Was there a lot of people there? Was it a sellout?
It was full. But what was really bizarre, the last two songs, she brought Harry Styles on.
Oh, really?
Weird, yeah. Then the crowd, it sort of numbed it, really. Didn't numb it.
Yeah.
It was almost like she was giving the star billing to him at the end. It was a bit bizarre because, of course, all these girls went nuts. And I thought, well... Yeah. Anyway.
Not a fan, John? Not a fan of Harry Styles, no?
Well, I don't like his trousers.
He does. He dresses obscenely. I'm sorry, he does.
I'm confused.
He's a good-looking lad. I don't know why he does it. It's mad. Yeah. Okay. I'll tell you what we'll do. As you will all know, with the show that John did with Gary, John, like more or less everyone else that follow Claret and Booze, was a fellow Moyes. Is it hater? Is hate too strong a word? It probably is.
No, not strong enough.
Yeah, a Moyes hater. But anyway, John's suffered like me for the last 2 years, 3 years. It's been awful. He's a season ticket holder. He goes over there in the posh seats, of course. But you still, even if you've got padding on your seat, you've still got to watch the football, John, haven't you?
Yeah, it don't matter what's going on with your arse is irrelevant. It hurts. It hurts whatever you're sitting on if you're looking down at David Moyes. I'd said 100%
videos. And when you closer than most, you were closer than most to David Moyes.
I was,
as well,
but I had Moyes in the front, and if I turned my head like that, I had Brady and the little gnome Sullivan dressed up as a Soviet general. Why does he wear that stupid?
I've got no idea. He's a strange creature.
And his girlfriend, of course, who's a freak of nature. But we better not go there.
No. It doesn't help that he's 2 foot tall and she's about 6 foot tall.
Do you know
that doesn't help?
What happened? I got a phone call from my, I don't know what they call them, concierge or whatever, the guy who arranges my tickets. But he rang me yesterday. I was at work. And I was in a courtroom and the judge was about to come in and the what was going on there, I was like, hello, what's up? And I was slightly nervous because I had a momentary fear that because I've been on Claret and Booze talking in less than complimentary about the boss, that he might say, hello, John, look, sorry, mate, but got to move you on.
Yeah.
Season
not with the price of your season tickets, John. No chance. I ain't taking that. They'll take the hit.
Anyway, it wasn't about that. He was simply trying to flog me a ticket to this friendly in a couple of weeks. I said,
oh, right. Yeah. Everyone's abandoning that anyway because of the Save the Concessions movement that's going on at the moment. I mean, look, I suppose just very quickly we can touch on that as well because look, I've spoken to loads of people. Obviously, look, this doesn't affect you. It doesn't affect an awful lot of people that are campaigning for this as well. But when you look at what they've done, you know, when you consider the money that it's actually making and the impact it's going to have on fans, what they're doing with concessions is really fucking awful. It's bad timing as well. It is. Have you read up on it? Have you seen the extent of these cuts and changes that they've made?
I haven't actually, but I am aware that, for example, if you want the really cheap seats, you've got to go right up to the top, and people are rightly complaining that, you know, a lot of people who can't afford are elderly, pensioners, and, you know, the sheer physical implausibility of going right up to the top.
Absolutely.
But it's not only at West Ham. I think it's happening at other clubs as well, isn't it? I can't remember who it was. A mate of mine was saying it was happening at his club. Was it Tottenham, or it might have been Tottenham?
It's happening everywhere. So it's a bit of a movement going on at the minute.
Yeah.
Wolves did really well. So Wolves were one of the first in terms of a fan base. They united. They got a petition going, which is kind of the path that we're taking now. And they managed to get the concessions and the price hikes overturned. That was earlier this season. So a lot of the clubs are joining forces on this, and that's why I think it is going to get some traction, because when you look at the money that they're actually saving to do this, it's peanuts by comparison to, you know, it's not worth the hassle. It really isn't. It doesn't make any sense, and it's not just the older fans; it's the younger fans as well. You know, if you want to go and be a season ticket holder this year, and you've got a 6-year-old son, and you're in Band 1 or Band 2, you've got to pay full price for your 6-year-old son, who isn't going to watch the game. He's just going to sit there playing with his cars until he gets a bug, which is what I used to do. But that's what they're
cars.
Playing with his cars. Yeah, I used to play with little toy cars. Yeah. That's what I used to do. I didn't watch the football at all. But that's what you do. You take your kid with you and you wait until something happens and it grabs them, and that's where the next generation comes from. It is generally.
If I had a guy brought his 4-year-old who was sat next to me during the football playing with cars, I'd pick him up from on the pitch. when I was, I'm not in the mood to be serious today. Sorry.
Go on.
So I remember there was one season at Upton Park in the 90s.
Yeah.
His little boy. And you remember how close the seats were? They were tiny little seats. There was no room. And so you've got a little 4-year-old in the seat next to you in the East Stand.
Yeah.
Above the chicken run. And he's kicking his legs around. Yeah. He don't even know where he is.
No.
And me and my brother, we used to go,
oh, really?
Within the earshot of his dad, and we just... Yeah. But every year, of course, the little boy got bigger and bigger. But no, to return to your point, you're absolutely right. Yeah, I do agree. Yeah, it's not right.
Yes. You're happy that there's going to be no children playing with cars next to you, is what you're saying.
Did I tell you? Good story. I don't know if I told you.
God.
In the posh seats where I was sitting, blocked, whatever it was. And I think I've complained about this already, that although the seats were owned by individuals, usually they'd get farmed out to other people. So you would never get the same people in the seats next to you. And one day I turned up in my normal seat, see a big bloke next to me, and he was a lot older than his girlfriend. And they were carrying a baby.
Right.
But I mean, a proper baby. This baby was like 6 to 9 months.
A real baby, a real one.
Yeah, didn't have ear defenders on or anything. And so the baby's sort of doing this all through. And the guy, I was sat next to my mate Chris, and the guy with the baby's on the other. And Chris, he's a lovely, lovely guy, but he doesn't want his football experience to be compromised
in any way
by baby. That's. And so the baby was sort of, being sick and screaming and all that thing, probably a state of absolute shock with all this noise around it. And so the bloke's bouncing the baby up and down. Keeps banging on Chris's elbow. Chris is trying to sort of drink his peppermint tea or whatever he take. And Chris just suddenly lost his shit. So I said, little Chris, second half, I'll sit next to the guy with the baby. I'll act as a heat shield. I will take your pain.
Yeah.
I swap seats. Guy comes back with his baby. And I think we're on the attack. And he jumps up and the baby sort of like hits me in the eye.
Oh, no.
Like that, you know. And I said, for fuck's sake, mate, I just lost it. I said, look, you got a fucking baby at the football. What's going on? And she said to me the eternal words, it's a free country. I paid for my ticket. I said, no. Anyway, he stood up and we had a bit of a face-off.
So with a baby in the middle?
Yeah. And I said to him, I was really proud of this. I said to him, we were both like really, really, you know, annoyed. And I suddenly thought, I said, no, mate, that's not fair. It's 2-1.
Is that honestly what you said?
That's what I said.
That's brilliant.
But what was really sad for the guy was when he jumped like this, his back, he brought a pie and mash. So he had pie and mash in one hand, baby in the other.
Oh, God. So how's he going to eat that?
Well,
what was he thinking when he bought the pie and mash?
He walked out.
I was going to say, you just didn't know, you know. It's a mark of the man. I mean, it's one thing having a baby, but when you've got a baby in one hand, to think that you can then go and devour a pie, you can't. You need 2 hands for pie and mash. You do. Yeah,
and
you know.
Yeah, it was a balancing act that was beyond the most dexterous of people. But anyway, he was gone, and we enjoyed the rest of the game. Sorry, I took you into a completely.
No, that's fine. That's fine. We understand you hate children. That's absolutely fine. So we're. So right, moving on anyway. So we're going to move on to the new era. Moyes is gone.
Yeah,
you know, he's gone. Lopetegui's in. He's in. You know, obviously we've got a bit of an understanding now that we've seen the press conferences. That you've got that feeling now that there's a relationship between Tim and Julian. We didn't know that was going to be the case. We didn't know if Julian was Tim's man and if we was going to have the same crap again. What vibe are you getting from this now, from what you've seen, from the press conferences and, you know, the behind the scenes stuff and everything else? You're getting excited?
I'm getting a very positive vibe, Gary. Sorry, Nick.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
I've viewers must understand this is the first time we've done a video, and I did those 2 very long ones with Gary. So I am getting a very warm and fuzzy feeling, Nick.
Yeah.
I think it's 2 things. It's the fact that Julian Lopetegui came over so well in that initial press release video, didn't he? About a month ago. He came over so well. And he was talking about the ambience at the club and he spoke at length about how he'd had his eye on West Ham and his team had their eyes on West Ham for such a long time. And you just got a feeling that he really wanted this job. He'd invested in this job months beforehand. He planned for it. It was the fruit of a long-term strategy. And he's a sort of guy who you just get the feeling he's genuine.
Yeah.
And there was none of this, I'm a winner. Winning is what I do. He's probably won a lot more games than David Moyes. But there was none of that sort of bombastic, like here's a guy who's trying too hard to prove himself.
You got that sort of impression when Moyes used to talk. It was very much me. With Julian, it was more we. He's sort of referring to himself and his team, wasn't he? That was kind of the feeling that I got, which is nice.
Yeah, I mean, David Moyes even carried that into the Euros. He was on one night doing some punditry, and he referred to a player as he was my. I can't remember who the player was, but for example, he was my goalkeeper at wherever.
Yeah.
It's all about. Excuse me. It's all about me.
Yeah.
Lopetegui just gave the impression that he's here to do a job, and it's a job that he's very keen to impress in. And you also got the feeling that he doesn't want to be anywhere else, which no. I suspect in the long run will be down to Sullivan, because we know what Lopetegui will do if promises are broken, and quite right. So yeah, I'm really happy with him. I haven't seen so many of the behind the scenes videos since, but I believe that he is the right fit. And I think I said there are 2 things. The first one was this sort of this sense that Lopetegui really wanted the job, but also that combined with a huge sense of relief that we all share in getting Moyes out of the club. You can't help but feel optimistic, I think. I feel really excited about the season, and I don't know how much money we've got. I'm tired of all these rumours. I've really done my best to stop watching other YouTube.
You're gonna love the next section then.
Good. You're gonna laugh.
I've got a few rumours that I've got to rattle through.
Yeah. Okay.
But I do think, look, I am excited about it. I think that we had the base of a really good team anyway. Without we know that there's gaps that needed to be filled. We know that there's players that need to be replaced.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm with you. I wasn't. I think what it was when we were linked with Julian Lopetegui. I think what kind of what ruined it for me was the fact that we were linked with Amorim, and Amorim was a profile of manager that I imagined that Tim was going to go for. Young, exciting manager, and I don't know. It just felt like there was a lot of negativity around Lopetegui because of what had just happened with him at Wolves. So yeah, I don't think that helped. I think that was quite clumsy of the club, to be quite honest, because it's quite clear that we've been talking to Lopetegui and lining him up for a long time, but I'm assuming it was just a due diligence exercise, maybe going out there before we push over the line with him to see if there is another manager that we could go out and get beforehand, because we definitely flew Amorim in. I don't know why, but I'm excited that we are where we are anyway. And they do appear, Tim and Loppe, they do appear like they're a bit of a team, don't they?
How many times did you see Moyes and Tim
Never.
sat on in a press conference like that? Don't think I ever saw.
We'd never heard Tim speak.
No. Don't you think?
Never heard him speak.
Don't you think that looking back, I think I was guilty of this. I think I was a bit seduced by Amorim without actually knowing anything about him.
Probably.
And I was probably falling for a lot of the excitement that was coming over into West Ham social media, because I've never actually watched Sporting Lisbon. I've never seen his style of play. I was just sort of lapping it up. And I think that also was born out of the sheer desperation of wanting Moyes gone and wanting a manager who we hope and believe is an attacking manager.
He is an outstanding young manager, but that doesn't mean that Lopetegui isn't a great manager, and I think we have got one.
And you're right. I think it was the contrast between this notion that we were possibly going to get this young, dynamic, very successful manager from Portugal, as opposed to the rather more sort of dour, pragmatic manager that Lopetegui is. It was a bit of it was a big letdown. But I remember, I think we spoke or texted the day after that PR video was released about a month ago, when you've got Lopetegui walking around our embarrassing training ground, walking into Tim's office that doesn't even have a window. I mean,
I know. It's shocking.
It's so embarrassing. But despite that, he came over not only as a breath of fresh air, he came over as someone with a lot of charisma, and you just felt that he is the sort of leader that I'd been wanting to bring to the club.
Absolutely.
For years, whose name you might hear getting sung in the terraces, which we haven't had probably since the early period of Slaven Bilic. I mean, that's 10 years. So, we haven't had a manager that we've really united behind for a very long time. And I think he could be the man.
No, I think he says the right things. I think he's a very clever guy. He's articulate.
He is.
I think he can read the room. He looks like he's the type of person that's going to be involved all over the club. He'll put his arm around the player. I mean, this is a guy that works with a squad and not a first 11. So you've got to be a different type of manager. You've got to be a different type of person to be able to do that successfully, because you've got to have the ability to convince players that are probably disgruntled that they're not playing, that they are part of the team. You're part of the squad. which is different to what David. Well, I don't think David Moyes tried to endear himself to anyone. It was just, it was just completely different. Whereas Lopetegui is about the squad. It's a squad game. He said that a few times.
Yeah, it's a squad game, but it's also a game that has to be played according to the strength of your opponent. And it's all very well having an all guns blazing manager who might concede as many, if not more, goals than your team will score. I saw a press conference with him a couple of weeks ago where he was asked the question, it said that you are not as attacking as some managers. And he answered the question really well. And he said, well, there are some games when we'll play in this style. There are other games where we might have to rein it in and play a different style. And I'm perfectly happy with that, provided there is a very sort of specific horses for courses approach in relation to or directed to your opponents and based on the strengths of your opponents. I'm all for that. It's better than having a guy who's just totally defensive every game and you hope to hit the other side on the break and you hope
absolutely.
That sort of dogmatic one size fits all approach that Moyes has.
And also, John, to a degree, the one-size-fits-all approach that someone like Ange Postecoglou has, or Bielsa.
That is exactly what I was about to say. So you'd either have the ultra-defensive, even though we weren't very good at it, setup that Moyes would have, or you could go into the other direction. And Postecoglou, as we all know, blazed a trail early on, but he fell quite badly away towards the end because he was unable to adapt to the system. I think Lopetegui, as you said, he's very intelligent. He reads the game very well. He's pragmatic and he's very adaptive. So it will be very interesting to see team selection, formation changes in different games. We'll see what he does. But I suspect he's going to have... I think he's got a plan. I think he knows exactly how to execute it. And I think we just need to get one or two more players in to... give us the best chance of doing just that.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And that's a good segue, John, for me to go into the section of the show that you've been waiting for.
You'd think that we rehearsed this, wouldn't you?
Yeah, the transfer rumour roundup.
We haven't rehearsed it.
Yeah, we haven't. No, we don't. We just jump on and start talking. Right. So first of all, I'm gonna whiz through them, and then there'll be a couple that we stop on and we have a chat about. So first of all, there's squad positions that do need filling, as we know at West Ham, and there's a raft of players that we are linked with. I'm only going to touch on the ones that I think are most likely at the minute. These things can change. Right back, from what I've been told, it is the two most mentioned players. It's either Kyle Walker-Peters or Wan-Bissaka. It's going to be either or. I think the most likely at the minute, surprisingly, is Wan-Bissaka, because I thought that we were going to push on for Kyle Walker-Peters because he's in the last year of his contract and we should have been able to get a good deal for him. Plus, Southampton have just bought his replacement. They've brought Sugawara from... he's a player that I can't even remember who he played for. Review so many players, but he was a player that I reviewed to come to us last season, a Japanese right-back. So they've recruited his replacement, but we can't agree a fee because we think that they want a little bit too much for him, because he's only got a year left.
Well, that's I'd rather have Wan-Bissaka anyway.
Yeah, I would. He would be my choice. I don't care either or, but it would definitely be Wan-Bissaka for me. Right, the breaking news story, just so I haven't got to keep you waiting anymore, is none other than Ibrahima Konate of Liverpool, the 25-year-old French centre-back who signed for Liverpool in 2021 from RB Leipzig for I think it was about 35 million. They didn't want to sell him either. It was Liverpool that sort of triggered his release clause. He's played for Liverpool, but he's struggled to nail down a regular starting lineup. There isn't any question over attitude or anything like that. I think he's had a few little niggly injuries, but nothing major. But the end of the season didn't go well for him. I know they've had a managerial change. You've got Arne Slot who's come in now, and obviously Klopp's gone. But he, the final 10 games of the season, he was dropped for 7 of them. He's incredibly disgruntled. He's been linked away since the end of the season to PSG and a club in Germany. I can't think who it is. It's not being reported anywhere else. I've got it on very good authority that we are trying to get a deal over the line for Konate. The only thing I can't get out of this source is the amount. I don't know. So I'd be speculating. I don't know what the amount would be, but I would imagine it would probably be around about what they paid for him. They'd at least want to make their money back, John, wouldn't they? So you're probably going to be looking at about 35, I would imagine. But a good player. What would
we really got, do you think?
A lot. We must have. We're nowhere near PSR. Nowhere near it. It's been Darmesh said the same thing. So he did a podcast the other day, and he said we're nowhere near the PSR limit. So we've got money, John.
Because do you remember at the close of the season we were talking about? Well, it was being bandied around that West Ham had about 180 million, even without the Paquetá money.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we all got down in the dumps 3 or 4 weeks ago when the club were putting out, no, we've only got like 50 or 60 million. And then we did a double take. All those of us who thought, heard that, thought, wow, is this a bit of propaganda from the club? We don't want to get ripped off by overinflated prices. So you reckon the money's there, do you?
The money is 100% there. I mean, I was starting to question that because obviously it was being leaked by the likes of Sean Whetstone, who did run through the accounts, to be fair. And look, it's all open book stuff. And he painted a picture that made it look like we only had about 80 million. But that was kind of his maths and his analysis of that situation. But I think Gary mentioned something that was right as well. When you take into account transfer fees, it's like he said, we had 80 million left. We just bought Guilherme, who was 25 million. Now we've only got 60 million left, as if to say we've paid for that player up front. No, we haven't. That you pay for these players over the course of 3, 4, 5 years, the duration of their contract. So same with Max Kilman. We haven't paid Wolves 40 million for him. That will be over 7 years, I imagine, because that's how long his contract is. But how would you feel about that? Konate, I really like him. I think he's a brilliant player.
It's not often that we buy players who are sort of trading down from a top club. First team was from a top club. It's very rare that we buy a player who's sort of stepping down a notch.
Yeah.
And given that he's not stepping down, he's not injury prone. He's not a bad player. He hasn't fallen out with the club. It's just that maybe Slot feels that, going forward, he wants to go with somebody else. You never heard Konate's name being bandied around as like the weak link in the defence. I don't remember hearing anything like that. So he's a very powerful presence at the centre of the back four, I would have thought.
He's quick as well.
What?
He's quick as well. He's fast.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great signing. And also, of course, you're buying someone with Champions League experience who what do you say, is 25?
He's 25, yeah.
Well, I mean, I think it'd be a tremendous signing.
Yeah, no, I agree. I completely agree. I've known about this link for a week or so now. And it hasn't gone any further. But I kind of got it clarified today that it's still very much on one of the targets because we're linked with. We need one thing I do know. There is money there, but they don't want a surplus of defenders. It's kind of common knowledge that they're trying to move Naif Aguirre on. They've got to move him on before we go out and we get another centre back.
We need to get it right at the back because I've lost count of the number of centre backs that we've bought over the last 4 years. It's ridiculous. There've been so many.
It is,
and the only one with any real sort of lasting reputation is Craig Dawson, who ironically was the one that when we bought him, I thought, what the hell is he doing?
I probably would say I think Zuma as well. I don't think when you consider he's injury prone, I don't think he's been a terrible player.
No, but
he hasn't been terrible.
It is quite sad watching him. It's almost like his legs don't bend at the knee anymore. It's sad watching him like that, and he is relatively immobile. And it's through no fault of his own. I mean, he had those knee injuries way before we bought him. It was baggage that we inherited. But watching him last seain, it was quite
a tough watch.
It was tough to watch, and coupled with that, the fact that he was never leadership material. I think, much as I like the guy, and I'd like to see him hang around actually, because I think he'd probably have a very positive influence in the back room. Aguirre, I always hoped that he would come good. There was something about him that I really liked. He was a cultured footballer, but I mean, all the signs are that he's just checked out the club, and you can't blame him. I just hope
he does
the money for it.
The only thing is, he was a player that I really kind of backed, and I kept on blaming David Moyes for. Well, look, David Moyes wanted him, but I was blaming the style of football. But when you see some of the mistakes that he made and the way he gets caught out, it's weak defending. You know, he's quite a weak centre back, and I don't think you can afford to be
he's not
like
a huge
that in the Premier
physical
League.
presence, is he? And
No.
Is completely different.
He is, and to close up the centre backs, the other one that we know that we are linked with is Todibo of Nice. So he's a player that we put in we didn't put in a 40 million bid. We put in a 30 million bid, I believe. But Nice went closer to 40, or it might have been 35. What I do know is we're not going to go anywhere near 40 for him, even though 35 ain't that far away. But this is similar to the John Duran story I'm going to talk about in a minute. But he is a player that I think he's another one that we could go for. I think we're going to sign either Todibo or Konate. I've got no preference out of either of them. They're both top class players. They are really, really similar profile players. You know, very mobile, very big, very dominating. Really, really good players.
And of course,
so we are going to
Mavropanos. So even if Zuma and Agued both went, we've still got 3 solid centre backs. I was never quite as sold on Mavropanos as you were, because I saw him make 1 or 2 fairly major mistakes as well.
Sloppy passes.
Yeah, I just, you know, he'd have a really great game, then he'd be a bit off. He got that goal against Arsenal, and he won a lot of people over then. Well in that game, but I would like to think of him as a first reserve rather than a starter. Unless we play 3 at the back, of course, which
I think it is. I think it is going to be 3 at the back. And there's been a bit of debate about this with some West Ham fans that have kind of looked into Lopetegui's past and have said he's never played a 3. It's wrong. I watched a tactical breakdown of his time at Wolves when he was there. This is where it's going to be very different under Lopetegui. It was so rigid with David Moyes. Everyone had their position, their zone that you used to stand in. You didn't move. The way that he plays is so dynamic. You've got wing backs that will fill into centre back. You've got overlapping players, underlapping players. The formation is fluid. It switches in game. In possession for Wolves, he played 3-4-3 with Max Kilman as a left-sided centre back, and that is where Max Kilman really excelled under Lopetegui. I'm sure that's why we've bought him. I think that is... It would make sense because we've been playing that way throughout the youth academy for the last year.
So it would
make sense.
Where would Konate play in a back 3 then?
He'd probably play centre, I imagine, because you wouldn't play... Dinos would be right-sided.
Okay.
He'd be. I think Dinos would be perfect in a back 3 because he is quite cultured. He's quick. He's big. He does carry the ball as well. He's another one of those. He's not scared to sort of carry the ball forward. So I think that could work. You do need
potentially Wan-Bissaka as a right wing back.
Right wing back, yeah, with Emerson on the other side.
You see, you know me. I've always had this soft spot for Vladdy, who I know you don't.
Yeah,
you're not a massive fan for him, but I think his crossing. I couldn't believe some of the comments I read about his crossing last season. I thought his crossing on the whole was really good. But I agree. It's probably time for him to step down or become a cup player and give over to someone like Wan-Bissaka. Emerson, there's talk that he has been wanting to leave. I'd love for him to stay another year. I imagine...
I would. I really would.
I wonder how much Paquetá's destiny will have to do with how long Emerson stays, because I get the feeling they're quite close, those two. Which leaves the left-sided berth. And this is something I wanted to mention to you, actually, Maxwell Cornet, because I think we all agree that he was given a pretty rum deal with Moyes. I think that's putting it really politely. All I remember of Maxwell Cornet in recent memory is he came on in a European game. I think he came on the right, and he came on for the last 3 or 4 minutes. It was an away game, and we were a goal down. You'll remember this better than me. Provided on a plate the pass for, I think it was Souček scored a last-minute equaliser. And he never played again. But I think it was most of last season. So I would like to see, because you don't become a bad player simply because you've got a bad manager. And I would like...
He's not a bad player.
No, he's not. That's why we bought him.
He's not.
And I would love to see him come again under Lopetegui, because it would be as good as signing a new player for nothing.
Well, from what I've been told, this was in my list as well, the update that I was going to do. From what I've been told, Lopetegui is keen on Maxwell Cornet. He's keen on he's not interested in selling him, basically. He's not on the list of players that he does want to move out. The two players that I've been told that we are absolutely looking for suitors for are Thomas Souček and Naif Aguirre.
Yeah.
I've not heard any more about James Ward-Prowse. I think he might be here. I think Ward-Prowse will be staying by the looks of it.
He can do it.
He can. Obviously, Danny Ings, we're doing our best to get rid of Danny Ings, but I think Danny Ings is being smart. Yeah. I think he was given a bit of a raw deal when he came into us. He was brought into the wrong system. He was misused.
Absolutely.
When Danny Ings did play well, he fucking didn't play the next game. So I do think
that really good game as a number 10. I wasn't. I think I was
against Sheffield United.
Yeah,
it was unbelievable.
I read about that, and he was a revelation. But then, he never. I don't think he ever played again, did he? Apart from 2 year and half a minute.
He didn't really play. So from Danny Ings' perspective, he knows that we don't want him. It's quite obvious he's waiting for a golden handshake. He probably wants, if you want to sell me, it's probably will be the case that we've got to bung him some money to get a shot of him. And I don't blame him. I think he's at that stage of his career. If he's got the power to do that, why wouldn't you do it? He hasn't been treated fairly, I don't think. So, yeah, I think he will be gone. I think Ings will be gone, sadly. So moving on to John Duran. This is a player that he is our top striker target. It's been revealed now even by Sean Whetstone, who's spoken to the senior source, and we all know who that is. They said that he is our primary target. Apparently, we were looking at him last year as well. So Tim's obviously brought this one with him in terms of maybe somebody that he was looking at when he was at Leverkusen. I don't know, but this is a player that Aston Villa originally wanted 40 million for. Bear in mind, Aston Villa are a little bit cheeky because the senior people at Aston Villa have been spreading stories about this guy Duran, saying that he's a problem. Now, you can't really say that on one hand and then ask for a ridiculous amount of money on the other hand if you've got this fucking problem player and say, well, give me 40 million for him. Well, Aston Villa, we weren't willing to go to 40. Aston Villa wanted 40, but they've dropped their demands to 35. Now, from what I've been told, that is in the region of where West Ham are happy and where that was kind of what was discussed. But they're waiting and they're stalling. Now, what are they waiting for, John? Because you've got the Copper final tonight. Are they waiting for John Duran to come off the bench for Colombia, score a hat trick, so that then Sullivan can go back to Aston Villa and go, I tell you what, there's your 35 million. What are Aston Villa going to say at that point? Honestly, what are they going to say at that point?
Yeah.
So it's. Yeah. I don't understand why they're waiting. There is a bit of a stall. There's a bit of a stall in the deal. It's still happening, from what I've been told. He's still the most likely striker to come in. But Aston Villa have dropped their demands to the level that West Ham were happy with, what they was asking for, and we haven't pushed through with it just yet.
Who are Colombia playing?
Not Uruguay. They're playing Argentina.
I somehow doubt that he'll score 3 goals against Argentina. I can see what Villa want any opportunity to bump his price up as a last minute.
Yeah, absolutely, because it will.
If he scores in the final. Is that what you suspect? They're hoping that he'll score a couple of goals so they can put another 25% in his.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure about Villa. The hold up isn't Villa on this one. The hold up is West Ham, from what I'm being told. So I don't think it's unlikely. It's unlikely that, like you said, he's going to score a couple of goals against Argentina. They've been very good in this Copa, though. He hasn't featured much. He's not featured much, but that's a good thing. I don't want him to play. I hope he doesn't kick a ball. Don't want him to get injured or anything. What do you think from what you've seen of John Duran? Because I'm going to be perfectly honest. I was given this name 4 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago when I broke the story. But I couldn't even place him. I know he's played for Aston Villa this year and he scored a few banging goals as well. But I actually couldn't think of who he was. But now, obviously, I've learnt a little bit more about him. He ticks every box for me. He does.
I must admit, I've not seen him.
No.
So I saw a little clip this morning.
Yeah.
Sort of a show reel. He looks. Yeah. But then I saw one on Gianluca Scamacca, and that was amazing as well.
And Zaza. Do you remember Zaza?
Yeah. Oh gosh, yeah. That's a blast from the park. Who was that? Was he Ecuadorian? Central South American player we had about
Valencia.
No, going back way before that, about around the year 2000. I think we got him from Derby County.
Oh no, you mean
because he was crap.
I can't think of his name.
He took over for Harpson. I hope he doesn't turn out like that. I hope he's not going to sort of flatter to deceive.
I've spoken to a few people, and one of the guys that I speak to knows his stuff. He does. It's impressive the level of he really does. And if this guy is saying that this kid is going to be phenomenal, I love that word. But he reckons that his ceiling is up here. He said if he does achieve anywhere near his potential, he's going to be unbelievable. He's a fantastic player.
I would trust Lopetegui because I get the feeling that he's piece by piece putting a jigsaw together.
Yeah.
And the Kilman deal for me, as I've mentioned this to you privately before, I thought 40 million was ridiculous for a guy he's never been anywhere near the England squad, I don't think.
No.
I don't think he has.
No, he hasn't.
But if this is a bespoke team that Julian Lopetegui is putting together piece by piece, with foresight and strategic planning, he has got a vision as to who he wants and how he's going to play them. Then this is a departure from everything that we've known for years. Because Moyes was a shambles. Pellegrini tried it. It didn't come off. He never got the blend right. He bought the wrong kind of players, I think. And then before that, Slaven, it just all fell apart with Slaven when we made the move. And because do you remember Slaven bought some really good players in when he started?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I think Allardyce brought in Valencia, didn't he? But he got Sacco. Is it Sacco? What was his?
No. I think Sacco and Valencia was Allardyce, weren't they?
Was it? But he brought Alex Song in. He put together a side, and
he really did.
It all went wrong. But for me, it's less a matter of the player and the identity of the player. It's the fact that these players have been specifically targeted. He's not, it's not a last minute rush in the window. I mean, those desperate nights was it August and September, ticking down to midnight. Are we going to buy a player? David Gold texting, watch this space. Nothing happened.
Don't go to bed.
Don't go to bed.
It
was pathetic. Now there appears to be a blueprint. So for me, it's less about the player. I can't comment on Duran. I've not really seen him. It's more about the fact that this manager is stamping his authority and his identity on the pitch. And that, for me, fills me with a lot of excitement. So I'm all for it. If he wants him, I have faith. It's pissing with rain outside. I don't know if you can hear it.
No, I'm all right here. I hope it doesn't continue later on. I've got a presentation to do and it's outside. Let me ask you to comment on one facet of John Duran, which is being discussed everywhere at the moment, and that is he's apparently got a bad attitude, according to Villa fans. He just didn't see eye to eye with Emery. The guy, what you're looking at is a Moyes Benrahma situation. The director of football brought Duran in. Emery wanted someone else. He hasn't really played him, hasn't really given him a chance. When he has given him a chance, his goals per minutes ratio is ridiculous. He's done really well with the time that he's been given, but he's played up. Have you got an issue with players that play up? I don't mind having the odd one. I mean, there's one behind me. Di Canio, who was a bit of a nutcase.
Yeah, well, he's the archetypal maverick. I don't. I think again it depends on the manager and the manager's plan. Lopetegui strikes me as someone who can be a very paternal figure.
Yeah,
he strikes me as being highly intelligent, probably a very good reader of people.
Yeah,
and I suspect that he is quite expert in knowing how to get the best out of people, putting his arm around them, making them feel valued. The guy is very young. If he's been made to feel undervalued or not valued at all in what's probably a relatively hostile environment, then, you can't expect him to necessarily to behave in a particularly mature way.
No.
You'd hope that Lopetegui's factored this in. I'm sure he has. Some people need to be told they're valuable. Some people need to be told that, you know, they're wanted. And well, we all do, don't we?
Yeah, of course, absolutely.
I don't think,
because you mentioned you said it was a shame about Benrahma because you could picture Lopetegui probably getting more of a tune out of somebody like Benrahma because he does strike you as a type of character that does need an arm around him, doesn't he, Benny?
Yeah, and he actually overall he did really, really well because he made a bit of a comeback last season. I see, not last season, the season before, because he was very, very down. He ended up scoring in the final. I loved him at first. Do you remember it took ages till he scored his first goal?
Yeah.
Then he went into a bit of a purple patch and he faded towards the end, obviously. But I liked him. I liked what he brought to the team. It was a bit of flair, which after Lingard left, we were sorely lacking. I never thought he was quite up to the Premier League level that we needed. And so him going to Lyon, I think, is good for both sides.
Yeah.
Maybe he would have been better with a better manager. Who knows? But
I agree with you. I think Benrahma wasn't as bad as he was made to look. I think there was a you know, he was better than that. But equally, I think that we can do better ourselves on that left-hand side. I think there's more that we can do ourselves.
I think he was a confidence player, and I think there came a time beyond which his confidence couldn't take any more knocks. And you know, I think we got the very best that we could out of him. Maybe with another manager, he would have done better. But I get the feeling that Duran, from what I've read and heard about him, is probably altogether a different package anyway. So
absolutely, yeah. I mean, the guy is he's 6'1", he's rapid, he's a brick shithouse. He can carry the ball, and what I do like about him, don't get me wrong, it's probably going to drive us mad at times. He shoots on sight, John, and he's got a thunder of a shot. If he gets a sight on goal, he's hitting it.
Yeah, that was one of my problems with Benrahma. He could be very selfish, often in completely position.
But I think it's different because Benny's a creator. This player's a striker. So he's a centre forward. If you're a striker, you're playing central. You want what Watkins did the other day. You want them to give themselves half a yard, turn, bang, shoot. You want that to be their instinct. If they're second guessing themselves, then they're not really a striker, as far as I'm concerned. It should be a very mechanical thing for a centre forward. It should be instinctive. The minute you receive that ball, you should just be looking for the goal. That's what you should be doing.
Don't you think though, Nick? We need to get another striker as well. We need.
I do. Unless I'm really hoping we keep Antonio. I am, but the rumours are that he may be pushing for a move away because I think he wants to play first team football, and I think he's aware from what I've been told, certainly with these links, because if John Duran is coming to West Ham, he's coming to play because the reason he wants to leave Aston Villa is because he's behind Ollie Watkins and he isn't playing. That's why he wants to leave. So if we sign Duran, we're playing him, which means that Antonio is then the backup. But I do think that Antonio, to sort of prolong his career for another couple of seasons, him playing as an impact player, John, I don't think there's that many better than him off the bench.
No, I've always said that. I think coming on for the last 15, he'd be a real help.
Yeah. But when the centre backs are all beat up, bring Antonio on.
But I hope that going forward, in the medium term, Lopetegui's got his eye on somebody else because I think Antonio's shelf life is limited. I mean, let's face it, if a big payday suddenly emerges over the next few weeks, he's going to be off. Saudi Arabia, maybe. Maybe.
I
hope Lopetegui's got his eye on someone down the line who we can slot in, if not in the winter window, then a year from now, because it seems to me we're a bit threadbare up front. Danny Ings, I feel sorry for Danny Ings, but the fact is he'd be a very good championship player. I don't think he's not going to start making an impact now. And I would like us to go out and get another striker, but that's probably me being a bit too.
I don't think that's going to happen in this window. I think
clearly
we're going to go out and spend 30 to 40 million on another centre back. That's going to be 80 million. we're going to be spending probably 10 to 15 million on a right back. So you're approaching 100 million, 40 million on a striker, a left winger as well. So we're still see. I've been told it's been. Do you know we were linked with Jota Silva?
I was quite excited
Jota Silva.
about that.
Yeah, but that link is still live. If you read the current links, it says that we've pulled our interest in that player in favour of Reece Nelson. Again, look, I wouldn't mind if we got Reece Nelson, but I'm being told that isn't true. I'm being told that's wide of the mark. That it's we want to get the deal done for the striker, and then we'll be moving on to the left wing option. They're sort of doing this quite systematically.
Is that Wesley Gafferberg gone now, or is that
no? He's still available. He's still on the radar as well. So it will be Wesley or Jota, but that Jota Silva, I think because he's got that release clause in there of 17 million, and he's got a release clause of 17 million, but also he's in the final 12 months of his contract. So I think rightly so, West Ham are saying to him, we don't want to pay you 17 million. He's only I think they're trying to get him for less, 12 million, 13 million. Because in a year's time he leaves for free. So
and he's Portuguese as well. He's got a name like Silva. I quite like. I'd rather have a Portuguese. I'd rather have a Portuguese sort of sexy footballer rather than someone from Arsenal.
He's very So would I. I mean, look. Reece Nelson isn't a bad player. He's not. But it's the trouble is you pay that sort of English tax, 20 million for Reece Nelson. He's done nothing really for them. He hardly plays. So where they're getting 20 million
I think
from,
we would have heard a bit more about him if he was.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
I don't like the idea of. Look, this is the problem for me. I don't like the idea of buying Arsenal cast off. It worked well with Nigel Winterburn.
Yeah.
And it worked well for 6 months with Ian Wright as well, going back.
Well, there you go,
But we're looking to invest, and I think we can do better than Arsenal cast-offs myself.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, look, but then again, wouldn't it be nice to get a player from an Arsenal or a Tottenham, a player that they've discarded that could potentially, he's only young, could potentially turn into a class player? You don't know.
Yeah, all right, maybe, but I've not seen enough of him to convince me that he's.
Do you know what my big concern with Reece Nelson is? I think we could be looking at another Jack Wilshere. He's severely injury prone.
No, well then it's a no-no.
He really is.
Well, then we shouldn't be thinking about him.
Well, apparently it's not a no-no. Apparently we are looking at him.
Well, we've got injury prone players. How many of those have we got? Jesus.
I know. Right, anyway, we're going to wrap up West Ham very, very quickly before we go, John, because you've got to go and so have I. Thoughts on England tomorrow? We've got the cup final. We're playing Spain. What do you think is going to happen? We won't bore everyone with this for too long.
Okay, this is what I'd like to happen. I'd love England to win it, but I would rather us. I would rather us lose heavily than win. I know this sounds unpatriotic. I'd rather see us lose. I mean, get really beaten properly and get taught a lesson, because we do need to be taught a lesson.
Yeah,
because we haven't played well enough to walk away from this thinking we know it all. We've got so much to learn. I think part of that is the manager. That's another conversation. I would rather see us get beaten than squeak it as we did against some Slovenia or we want to play football.
So what you're saying is if we play football well and you'd like to see us play football and outplay Spain and beat them. You'd like to see us do that.
West Ham philosophy being transferred onto the England side. I just want us to see. I want us to play football.
You don't want us to shit house a win. Is that what you're saying?
No, I don't. I genuinely don't, because look, I don't want to be down on Southgate, but I've never been a Southgate fan, and the reason I've not been a Southgate fan is that I just find him devoid of inspiration, and it is a divisive relationship that we have with the England side. I mean, I'm no fan of Gary Lineker. He's the we won't talk about that. But, the BBC commentators have been on Southgate's back. In a way, I found that quite refreshing, because for once they've actually come off the fence. Southgate has deserved a lot of criticism. And
massively,
it's not new.
Massively.
It's not new. I mean, it's every tournament we've had the same. How many proper sides have we taken to the cleaners in the tournament? We beat Germany in the last Euros.
I think Holland was a good win and a decent performance in that first half.
And I don't want to ignore that. We were tremendous in the first half, but we really lost momentum in the second half. Yeah. And we got lucky in the last minute again with a fantastic goal. But what produced that goal, same as what happened when Tony came up and produced the goal against Slovenia. Was it Slovenia, the overhead kick from Bellingham?
That was Bellingham, yeah.
Or was it Switzerland? Whichever one.
No, it was Slovenia. We were like we were a minute away from going out, weren't we?
What's the common denominator? Everybody knows this. The common denominator is Harry Kane. Get him off the pitch, and suddenly we've got movement up front. I know he won't have the courage to drop Harry Kane tomorrow, but if he did have courage, and if he really, really wanted it as badly as he says he does, he would drop him and drop Trippier for sure as well and put some balance back on the left-hand side.
Yeah. Watkins absolutely deserves to start, doesn't he?
Well, he does, because he plays on the shoulder of that last defender and he scares the living shit out of them. Harry Kane, on several occasions, ball's been, hit hard and low across the is it the 5 yard or the 6? What is it? The 5 yard box or 6?
Yeah. He's not there. He's nowhere to be seen.
He's a yard. He's always a yard or two behind.
Yeah.
And I think a year in the Bundesliga, he's not playing at the pace that he used to, and he's lost that yard. And I think what he ought to do, I'd love him to do this because it would be eternally to his credit and secure him as an icon. He should do what Alan Shearer did after Euro 2000 and retire.
Because I think he might after this tournament. I think he should,
because he hasn't got. Yeah. Shearer retired because he didn't have the pace anymore, and then it improved his club football, and he was brilliant for another 4 years with Newcastle. Harry Kane has dropped down a league to the Bundesliga, and it shows.
Undoubtedly,
it shows. And I think we've got two strikers who really ought to be ahead of him in the pecking order now: Tony, but ultimately Watkins. Yeah. Just to, I know we've got to finish, but what do you think? Because the FA apparently want Southgate to stay on whatever, don't they? I knew that would happen.
I'm going to be the same it'll be the same. I haven't got the same emotional investment with England. I don't really care as much. But no, I would. Having said that, I think that lack of emotional investment is due to the manager and the style of football. I think if I absolutely loved watching England play, I'd feel very differently. But I think the Southgate era, even though you could argue it's been our most successful period in terms of getting far in tournaments, it's also been it's been so fucking boring. It's so dull.
Yeah.
So I find it very difficult to watch the friendlies, to get invested in it. I really have. So for me, even if he wins his tournament, I think he should do what David Moyes did when he won in Prague. What didn't do, he should leave with his head held high. That's what I believe. He's won his trophy, walk away. Yeah,
and that segues beautifully, and I emphasise to the viewers, we haven't rehearsed this, but my views on social media, Nick.
Yes.
I think that social media is the cancer of society. I'm not involved in it, but I do subscribe to the online Daily Telegraph, and for those out there who want to cover their ears, but I do. And I do get involved in the odd online debate.
Yep.
Ed James wrote a few days ago, that Southgate should do the smart thing, like any gambler worth his salt, quit while he's ahead. If he stays, it will end in tears and recriminations because he's very lucky but very defensive and he's too risk averse. His luck will run out. I followed up with, time's up. This is what. See, I've got a very ironic sense of humour. What I love about social media is how stupid sometimes people reveal themselves to be because they don't understand irony. So I wrote, time's up. Need to get a proper ball. This is what I do when I'm like lying in bed in the morning, I'm bored or on.
Yeah. You go fishing in the comments. That's what you do.
Time's up. I need to get a proper baller in. Send for Pep or Dave Moyes.
Oh, fucking hell.
No. Ed James replies very quickly.
Yep.
Yeah. Even Potter or Howe. Both would bring dynamic tactics.
So you put Pep and Moyes in the same sentence, and he's completely he's going along with this. He's going along with this, is he?
Ed doesn't see the irony. He's sort of endorsing what I've said. Proper baller, Pep. I'm putting Pep and not David. Dave Moyes in the same sentence. Ed says, even Potter or Howe, both would bring dynamic tactics and attacking style. To which I replied, you get a lot more goals under Moyes, and that's got 3 thumbs down. People taking it seriously. God. Don't think I'm joking. When I need to get a proper border in, send for Pep or Dave Moyes, it got 2 likes and 2 thumbs down. That means 2 people actually think that Pep and Dave Moyes should be mentioned in the same sentence. I know. And there are 2 people thumbs down who actually were taking me seriously. Then there was one more. I just got to read you this because...
Go on.
This is another debate about who the next England manager should be. And I wrote, get capital letters, get Dave Moyes in.
Yeah.
Don't let Scotland beat us to it. Believe me, I know what I'm talking about. I've watched Dave at close hand since COVID. Tactical genius, fits perfectly with the FA blueprint for rigid, one-dimensional, suicide-inducing football.
Fucking hell.
Rigid, one-dimensional and suicide-inducing football with no subs until the last 10 minutes where the game's all but gone. Every once in a while, the players get so sick of it, they stage a mini revolt on the pitch and actually start playing football. As a study in reverse psychology, it's genius. Only Dave Moyes can deepen Southgate's gaping hole.
Oh, fucking hell.
Dave Moyes for England. Now, 2 likes, 3 dislikes. So 2 people like the idea. 3 of them...
oh, fucking hell. It's worrying, isn't it? It really is. It really is.
Oh, I love media.
Oh, no. I know. It's good fun. It's good fun. Right. Well, John, thank you very much for joining me, mate. Thank you very much. I enjoyed that. Yeah. I enjoyed that. We was only going to do 25 minutes to half an hour. We're an hour in.
No, yeah. You have to edit me out. Yeah.
No editing. Okay, wonderful. John, don't forget, don't log off because you have to upload.
All right.
Thanks, everyone. Speak to you all again soon. Come on, you irons.
Come on, you irons.